From ballooning up to 200 pounds between fights to a super controversial victory at UFC 282, here are a few of the reasons why Paddy the Baddy isn't top 10 material. For starters, Pimblett seriously needs to work on the basics. Before all of his fanboys rip me apart in the comment section, I just want everyone to hear me out. I'm not saying Paddy isn't a good fighter. All I'm saying is that he needs to make a lot of improvements.
Everyone thinks I'm a big fat bastard lad and I've got loads of weight to lose. I haven't. You know what I mean?
If personality, humor, and sellability made someone a good fighter, the Baddy would be in his element. But unfortunately, that's not how things work. He seriously needs to work on the basics to actually have a chance at ruling the division. The Liverpudlian put on some really good performances in his first 3 fights.
It's getting tighter, Michael.
Here we go. This could be it.
He's done it. Paddy has done it in London.
But as soon as he was up against Jared Gordon, every single weakness in his game got exposed, big time. He was all over the place at UFC 282, and while he did get the W, the majority of the fighting world thinks Flash got robbed that night. It genuinely seemed like an amateur fighter going up against a professional. Paddy was legitimately lacking the basics of fighting. And I know what you're thinking right now. Easy to sit behind a screen and talk about how he lacks the basics when he could literally beat me to a pulp, but he's in the UFC, the big league, and if he really wants to become a champion someday, the 27-year-old seriously needs to work on the basics.
Self-fired training without eating enough. We used to do that, well, I used to do that years ago when I fought at featherweight. I used to kill myself to make weight. Now, it's not like that. Now I can still eat 2,000 to 2,500 calories a day in good food. This is what makes life easy. Look at that. That's healthy.
And improve his skills. Oh, and don't even get me started on his discipline. Look guys, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not trying to hate or anything. I think he's an entertaining fighter with a lot of potential. But is he at that level where he can talk trash about being the next cash cow or the next big thing? No. He lacks the discipline to become the #1. And I'll tell you why. I want you to think of every UFC fighter who's been a champion. Imagine what they had to go through to reach the top. The sacrifices, the long hours in the gym, and the insane amount of discipline. Only then were they capable enough to become the world's #1. Do you think Paddy can become the world #1?
Know what I mean?
But what are you learning here, lad? It's the striking, innit?
Yeah, all the boxing, all the fundamentals. He likes to say striking coach Chris lately as well because he's been adding kicks in for me.
If he continues to bubble up to 200 pounds between fights, would a fighter committed to becoming a champion someday put his body through all of that? Or look at it this way. Have you ever seen Conor, Khabib, Islam, or Oliveira completely ignore their fitness in between fights? No, right? Because they were focused and committed to becoming a UFC champion. And Paddy can talk all he wants about being the next big thing or the new cash cow, but until he starts proving it with his actions, he's not going to make it anywhere. PFL featherweight champion Brendan Loughnane knows a thing or two about the top 10, and when it comes to Paddy, he just doesn't see him as top 10 material.
That's what I said. That's exactly what I said. I'm like, London. Like, don't be ungrateful. It's all right. I'll take it.
Brendan has spent a significant amount of time training with fighters who have been ranked in the top 10 in the 155-pound division. The main distinction he noticed between them and Paddy is their skill level. The PFL featherweight champion claims it's scary to train with those guys because they're operating on a different level. They're not too worried about being the next big thing or the cash cow. All they care about is dominating in ripping off heads inside the octagon. And if he were to compare them with Pimblett, the Liverpudlian doesn't even come close in terms of competition. But the question still stands. Is he talking about right now, or will Pimblett never be able to make the UFC top 10? Well, if you ask me, he still has a lot of years in him.
And he's got that neck. He's got the neck. Jump right on it, did Pimblett.
He's only 27 years old right now, and he probably isn't even at his peak yet. As long as he's about the championship lifestyle, then I don't see him falling behind or anything. I think he'll actually be able to rise to the top, but becoming a champion someday? I'm not too sure about that. After watching the sport for so long, you can sort of tell who has what it takes to rise to the top. And when I look at Paddy, I see a fighter capable of being in the top 5, but I don't know about becoming a champion. He'll have to make some significant improvements if he really wants to be the top guy at the promotion, and Sean O'Malley seems to agree.
Damn, everyone in our building was like, "Damn, Paddy lost." 100%. There was no And then it was a unanimous decision. I'm like, oh, I thought Paddy won at least one round. And then they announced that.
He thinks Paddy has the potential, but not the skills. UFC bantamweight title contender Sugar Sean O'Malley knows how Paddy must feel right now, since he's been in the same boat. Sean was also once labeled as the next big thing, and to be fair, he lived up to all the expectations and the hype. After a victory over Petr Yan, O'Malley has found himself in the driver's seat, and he's literally inches away from a UFC title. But when it comes to the baddie, Sugar isn't convinced at all. He thinks the Liverpudlian has a lot of potential considering he's still so young, but whether he can become a huge draw in the future is highly doubtful. His rise is compared to Conor's, and while he does have the mic skills to back himself up, he's failed to walk the talk. Sean also said that Paddy doesn't really have the striking necessary to navigate such a competitive division, perhaps the most competitive in the entire UFC.
In a few years, but as I say, when I end up fighting ranked opponents, I'm not going to do this. I just know I can't do it now.
Dana White worrying about you right now.
I know what I mean. Is there not more shit you need to ask Dana going on in the world that you've got to ask him about my weight?
If guys like Justin or Oliveira are around when he's fighting ranked guys, will Paddy's striking be enough to do damage? Or is he going to get his backside handed to him every single time? But yeah, O'Malley still believes the Liverpudlian can improve as long as he's willing to put in the work. But it's not like everyone is out to get him. MMA veteran Chael Sonnen thinks he did the right thing against Jarrett. Could the fight have gone either way? Yeah, it was a close fight, and the Brit did enough to win the battle.
It's just not what I saw. And in fairness to what I thought I did see, Gordon could have won that fight 30-27, and I would not complain. Do you want to know the other side of the coin? Paddy could have won that fight 30-27, I wouldn't complain. I thought it was really competitive.
But does that mean Paddy should just say he lost the fight or something? Just because fans and MMA journalists think it's a robbery? That Pimblett should sympathize with Gordon for getting robbed? That's not what Sonnen thinks. He thinks the Liverpudlian did the right thing by acknowledging himself as the winner that night. He didn't pull off a Jan Blachowicz or something, because that wouldn't have helped him out one bit.
There's just a level of objectiveness to that, right? If John's going to speak out on something and be consistent, as he has done his entire career, and now he has a built-in conflict.
And while Paddy did sort of see a decline in his ratings after UFC 282, it's nothing that he can't improve. Oh, and speaking of improvement, even Paddy knows it's time before he becomes a champion. I'm guessing Pimblett really took meaning of what Michael Bisping had to say about his performances. Instead of talking about knocking guys out left and right, Paddy should sit down and be humble to avoid further embarrassment. It was different when Conor did it because he actually did what he said. But if all he's doing is talking and doing nothing, then maybe it's time he put his head down and put in the work. The Liverpudlian claims it'll be at least another 3 years before he can become a champion. I think he's onto something here.
He could take a punch like me fingers are killing. Know what I mean? I hit him with some punches and he just kept walking forward. He's got some heart, some resilience, and yeah, hats off to Jared, know what I mean? Because I've hit people with them sort of shots and they don't keep walking forward.
He can make a lot of adjustments to his style and possibly become top 10 ranked material. But as of right now, he doesn't stand a chance against the big boys. So that's why Paddy Pimblett isn't top 10 UFC material yet. Thanks for watching and see you soon.